Good morning and welcome to Manchester. It's my hometown, so I have got an umbrella in my bag. My lords, ladies and gentlemen, it is an absolute pleasure to be a patron of this association. My full title is Lord Evans of Rainham, and there's a clue in the name, Rain. I live not very far away from here. My forebears come from Manchester. I've had a 30-year career in private sector business, but for some reason I was interested in current affairs, and I'm sure every one of you sat here today is interested in current affairs, but for some reason it gravitated to a successful business career, but also into current affairs, local politics. And I started off as a school governor, as you do, and then somebody says parish council, borough council, and then eventually for some reason I thought I'd make a good member of parliament. And in 2005, I fought the 2005 general election, and I fought the constituency of Worsley. Unfortunately, Worsley fought back, and I didn't win. But I wasn't put off. I quite enjoyed that experience, and Worsley is a nice constituency, not that far from where I'm stood here. And I gave it another 5 years, and I tried again in 2010. And I was a good businessman, if I say so myself. I was pretty good on the doorstep, knocking on doors, asking for their business or asking for their vote. And I got the biggest swing of 8.1% in the 2010 election, which meant that I scraped in with a massive majority of 901. I knew them intimately. I used to send them Christmas cards. I'd write to them regularly to try and persuade them to vote for me again in 2015. So I worked very hard to reduce my majority to 805 in the 2015 election. But hey, you only need one to win. Apparently there was going to be an election in 2020 under the Fixed Term Parliamentary Act of 2010, but we had a change of government. We had something called Brexit. The Prime Minister of the day, David Cameron, stood down, and we had a new Prime Minister called Theresa May. If you remember Theresa May, strong and stable, as opposed to weak and wobbly, and she decided to have something called a snap election. Now, snap elections, ladies and gentlemen, to a marginal seat MP, it's lethal, and it turned out to be lethal because it wasn't a very snappy election. I sadly lost my seat. The job that I'd fought 20 years to get was ripped away from me. But that's democracy. Democracy's tough on the politicians as opposed to politicians being tough on the public. But I worked hard, set up my own business and worked hard for 5 years, and I was asked to join the House of Lords, and I joined the House of Lords in 2022, and I bumped into the Member of Parliament who'd ripped my love of my life, my seat away from me. Now, the name of my constituency is called Weaver Vale, northwest Cheshire. Has anybody heard of Weaver Vale? There's always one. Has anybody heard of the MP that took my seat? I think you might know who it is. Mike Ainsbury took the seat from me, and Mike Ainsbury has become infamous because he ended up spending a bit of time at Her Majesty's pleasure for hitting a constituent on Frodsham High Street, very nice market town. So he was recorded on CCTV smashing a constituent. So I can assure the audience here today that it wasn't like that in my day. I used to ask for their vote. But we are here today. It's a very serious meeting because we are living through interesting times. Geopolitical factors having a huge effect on business. According to the United Nations in 2023, marked the highest number of violent conflicts around the world since World War II. The impact of these conflicts on lives is immeasurable. The impact on livelihoods stemming from business disruptions and the strain on global supply chains is also substantial. The increases in the conflicts and geostrategic competition has also produced material spikes in defence spending. NATO continues, for example, an expected increase in defence spending of 17% between 2023 and 2028, fueled in large part by the 35% spending increase in NATO's European members. Elsewhere, India's defence budget is projected to expand by 46% and Japan's by 56% over the same period. And indeed, in our country, we've recently announced it's going to go up to 2.5%. NATO is now committing to 5%. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a huge increase if we're going to go to 5%. And there will be very, very difficult decisions that politicians will have to make. Now, in 2015, I was the Parliamentary Private Secretary to the Secretary of State for Defence, and we had the Security, Defence and Security Review of 2015. And I was studying at the Royal Defence College and studying an international security strategy master's degree. And I remember all the students in a room very similar to this, about 100 odd delegates from across the world, all the United Kingdom's friends and allies at that time. And I have to say to you, there weren't any Russians, but there were a few Chinese in that room. So it's amazing how times do change. And I remember working on that, and 10 years later, the world has completely changed, and it shows what a fast-moving, dangerous world we now live in. I recently, 3 weeks ago, I was in Israel, visiting Israel and Palestine, meeting politicians there to see if we can reconcile the differences and try to bring some agreement. And you can see that that worked out well, given the events that went over at the weekend. But these areas, these conflicts have a direct impact on our country, indeed on your day job. Yesterday, the government introduced the UK National Security Strategy 2025, the first one in 10 years. And a bit like the defence strategy, times have moved, and it's moving quicker and quicker, as we can see in the Middle East and as we can see in the war in Ukraine between Russia. And one of the technological changes that are happening have implications on your businesses and indeed your companies. And if I can go back to, I'm in the House of Lords. I flit in and out of the House of Lords all the time. But security is paramount. It's probably one of the most targeted areas in London. And the security is important. But there are some very high-profile security failures that have happened in recent years. I served briefly as a police officer in the Cheshire Constabulary in the 1980s, before I went into business. And so the Metropolitan Police have plenty of police officers and security officers, men and women, in and around the perimeter, and indeed into the House of Commons. And as a former police officer, I always used to say hello, and as you do, have a bit of banter on the way in and out. And some of you may remember PC Keith Palmer, who was murdered by Islamist terrorists. Now, Keith used to stand at the front of the entrance to Parliament, and if you wanted to see the icon of a British bobby, he was there with his tall hat, no body armour, no taser other than the piece of wood attached to his side, and tourists would come up and have photographs with him. It was always good morning, Keith, morning, sir. Wonderful chap. But in March 2017, he was attacked by Islamist terrorists who barged his way past him and a colleague. Keith went to try and save the day, but he was knifed. But I was in the vicinity. I witnessed Keith's murder because I was the Parliamentary Private Secretary for the Secretary of State for Defence. I was in his car, and of course, if you're the Defence Secretary, you have two close protection officers. Now, these guys are fantastic. There may be some in the room, but these are always very, very smart, upstanding, very kind. They always stand in the background. You don't see them really, but they're always there, and they're always ready to do what they have to do. Well, the close protection officers on that day saved the day, because one whisked myself and the Secretary of State for Defence away in one direction, away from danger. The other one went towards the danger, and 2 shots later, the terrorist threat was over. So the reason why I mention that to you, ladies and gentlemen, because it shows how security, when it goes wrong, does end up with fatalities, and it ends up with fatalities of friends and colleagues. That close protection officer, highly trained, did a great job, saved the day. But of course, the way we operate in this country, when heroes save the day, we suspend them on full pay. But he did get recognition at a later date. But talking of colleagues who were murdered through a lack largely through a lack of security, but you can only defend yourself so much as a British politician, because whatever you may think of British politicians, we are very, very accessible. Most constituency MPs will have surgeries, help and advice surgeries. They are there to help. If you look at MPs, they will want to get back to their constituents on a Thursday or a Friday to hold these help and advice surgeries. So anybody who is a constituent can arrange to come and meet their MP with a view of helping them in one way and another. And I used to do surgeries on a Friday, and what it used to do was connect the MP, the politician, with the grassroots, the constituents. So actually, British MPs and parliamentarians do actually know what is going on the ground. But you may remember it's the close proximity of the anniversary of the death, the murder of Joe Cox. Joe had come into Parliament, a relatively new one in 2015. She hit the road running. She was a very popular cross-party support, and she was murdered outside her constituency office to do a surgery. Some of you may remember close friend and colleague David Amis. David Amis was similarly murdered in a church doing a constituency surgery by an Islamist terrorist. And going back a while, those of you old enough in the room will remember Airy Neve, who was blown to bits in the Parliamentary car park as he drove out. Now, Airy Neve was a war hero. Airy Neve was the first British man to escape from Colditz. So the reason why I say this, that security is very close to my heart, all parliamentary hearts. And when it goes wrong, it really does go wrong. Now, as an MP, as a politician, as a member of the House of Lords, thought leadership. How do you show the country in a democracy that we do actually know what we're doing? And I appreciate when you look at the news, you sometimes wonder what on earth they are doing. But it's very important. And I don't know about you, but when I was a young man and people talked about leadership, you immediately think of Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill, great wartime, the greatest wartime leader. And I'm sorry, I am a Conservative politician, so I would say the greatest peacetime leader was Margaret Thatcher. I remember growing up in the 1970s, not far from here. We had the 3-day week. We were the sick man of Europe. And this young lady called Margaret Thatcher was elected leader of the party in 1975. I couldn't vote till the 1980s, and I voted for her. But I'm sure some of you will remember 1982 and the liberation of the Falklands. And so, therefore, she became well known for standing up for democracy and what she thought was right. And Margaret Thatcher is coming up to her 100th anniversary, 50th anniversary of becoming a leader of the Conservative Party. Those are the type of leaders you think that take our country into a better place, standing up to tyranny and hopefully going into the sunny uplands and moving forward. And we are very much as a country in that position now. As I said earlier, we are in a dangerous world, an insecure world, which is the business that we're in. But there's also what I would refer to as constituency leadership. So I was a constituency member of Parliament. As I say, MPs want to get back to their constituencies to show the voters that they're working. And just to give you some examples of what that leadership can deliver, I did lead the Mersey Gateway Bridge, which is a magnificent bridge, £750 million worth of investment over the River Mersey in my constituency. I delivered a brand new school, a brand new town centre in Northwich, a new lifestyle centre and swimming pool in Northwich, a new swing bridge over the canal, the Sutton Weaver Canal Bridge. I opened a new railway called the Halton Curve, which helped commuters get from Chester. I could go on, but it didn't save me at the general election, I may add. But that's the sort of leadership. So you can have leadership at the grassroots level, which you all may notice. You may notice that there's potholes at the moment. You may notice that it's difficult to get to see your GP and so on and so forth. And so that's where leadership at the national level does affect at the local level. And in terms of leadership and where it goes wrong, and think about this in your day job, stop the boats. Rishi Sunak, Prime Minister, a few years ago came up with this 5-point plan for us all to remember him by. And one of them was stop the boats. Well, that didn't work, did it? That didn't turn out. If you're going to make promises in public life, you need to deliver. And it's the same in business life. when you're in your board meetings, speaking to the people who make the decision of where the limited resource are going to be spent. If you're going to make promises, you've got to deliver. So Rishi failed to stop the boats. He made no impact whatsoever. There was this Rwanda deal, and as a government minister working in the government in the Lords, I spent many a late hour trying to get that policy through the House of Lords. Now, many of you may see parliamentary PMQs, what they call PMQs, on a Wednesday. That's today. So the Prime Minister will be prepping at the moment to take PMQs. The Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Badenoch, will be prepping to ask those questions, and you'll see the PMQs is quite an interesting, aggressive, rightly so, trying to catch one another out, and it's very. If ever you come down to Parliament, I encourage you to come down to Parliament. If you're looking for trips, they're free of charge. I'm very happy to take you around individually or groups. But you will see it's a tiny, tiny place. There's too many members of Parliament, 650 for the seats available. So it's a bear pit, and that's good for democracy. However, that's what the media sees. That's what you see on television. That's what you hear on the radio. That's what you see in the newspaper. It's not quite like that in the Lords. We don't start till the afternoon. We start at 2:30 on a Monday, Tuesday, 3 o'clock on a Wednesday, and we go into the evening. And I know the media sort of makes out that we're a bit slower and a bit dozier, and pictures of lordships falling asleep on the benches. That does happen from time to time, depends if they've had a good lunch or not. But we are the revising chamber. And the good thing about the revising chamber, and although I miss desperately being a member of Parliament, I love being a member of Parliament, getting things done for people, helping people, and delivering for people. That's what I did in my business career, and that's what I did as a politician. But the good thing about the Lords, they do not have something called constituents. Constituents can't phone up a lordship and say, if you don't do as I say, I'm not going to vote for you, because we're life peers. I'm a life peer. I don't have to. I'll listen to people respectfully. I will take their correspondence. But the lordships can make decisions in the national interest. What I like to say is they do the right thing. Doing things right is a managerial process of going through ticking boxes, and you may come across a lot of that in your day job of doing the right things, ticking the right boxes, as opposed to saying, actually, I could easily tick all the right boxes and I'll have an easy life. Actually, the right thing to do is this. And this is where you get the controversy that you may see in the media. But I find being in the Lords, as you probably gathered, I enjoyed being a politician. I enjoyed arguing my corner on behalf of constituents. But now I'm arguing the corner on behalf of what I believe in opposition is to hold the government to account. And given what is going on in the world, in Ukraine and in the Middle East, it has an impact on all of us, on all of you in this room, and indeed in your friends and family at home. So quite often, the competing priorities of business and revenue generation means that taking calculated risks. This can create blindness to risk events that may negatively impact the bottom line. It is vital that security leaders speak truth to power in a business, but that doesn't mean being Puritan about the highest levels of security. You must use empathy and your business acumen to understand the purpose of the business and why risk is intrinsic to growth, tailoring your security advice to facilitate, not block, the growth potential. See the problem from the CEO's point of view. Consider how they will hear what you have to say. Often this will mean that they do not adopt all to your recommendations, but that's okay. You should understand that they have heard, but you have advised them and been considered on the multitude of other factors that you are aware of. Don't be disheartened by that. If you are protecting fast-paced consumer goods, you can expect that this to be the case, more than a business in C&I or a regulated sector. Understand your business and adapt. You are all experts in adapting. So whatever it is the sectors that you're representing, The CEO is, I always used to say, he has a wake-up and worry. What is the CEO's wake-up and worry? What are the board of directors' wake-up and worries? Well, there's so many. There's competition. There's competition internally, externally, globally, and we also have now the third dimensions coming in with international events. So when I was in business in the 90s and the noughties, I did a similar speech to a gathering startup coalition yesterday in Parliament. So it's an audience similar size to yourselves, but there are no disrespect to anybody in the room, but a bit younger than myself and your good selves. And they're starting out. So these are bright young things who have started their own business. Now, some of them may be sole traders, some may be bigger, and they're scaling up. And they are the future. And politicians love startup organisations because they are the future and they are the G word, which all politicians love, which is growth, particularly at the moment as the country is not growing economically. And when I was speaking to them, I was sharing with them, as I am here today, about the importance of business and growing your business. But you have to understand the sector, you have to understand the threats, but also the opportunities and how you converse with the people that will make the difference. And the people who make the decisions in your case are the C-suite directors. They are the CEOs, the financial directors, the commercial directors. They all have wake-up and worries. But what I would say is you're in the right place at the right time. Because of the threats to the country and to the global economy, that puts you in a position where you need to be aware, and I'm sure you are aware, of the implications that may have on your business and your business sector. And so therefore I would encourage you to follow current affairs. It's fairly straightforward. It can be quite addictive, particularly with mobile phones, but I'm a bit old-fashioned. I actually like magazines and newspapers. I still listen to the BBC. I watch the BBC. Starts with the Today programme and it ends with Newsnight. And you can imagine my wife really does appreciate that. It's very important that you are the leaders. So look at the profession, be professional. If you don't take yourself seriously, why should anybody else? So that's what I am encouraging you to do. So when I think back to my days, I started with a tech startup in the 1990s on NASDAQ. I had to deliver. And a boss who was German used to say to me, Graham, he says, if you want to eat, you have to sell. And if you didn't deliver, you were asked to leave the company or go into admin. We used to have quarter reports on NASDAQ, so that's the tech stock market in the States, so the pressure was always on. But I enjoyed that, and I was successful, but you don't become successful without planning and preparation. So follow current affairs, become an expert in that, and look for what it is that's going on in your sector and indeed in your organisations, and think, well, I can make a difference here. Some of the things I have to offer, the value added I bring to this C-suite board of directors, you could find yourself them all ears because they've woke up in the morning, they've heard the news as I have, and they have something called fear, uncertainty and doubt in the future of their business. And therefore you can have a role in that. I'll finish by reinforcing the last session of the day. Vegan will offer you insights into regional resilience and growth through persistence. Learn to accept the things you cannot change and consider every event as an opportunity to grow in knowledge and experience. Share your ideas with each other and build professional networks that you can seek advice from and also offer advice to. This is a peer network. I don't mean peer as in me, I mean peer as in you all. Of security leaders. You are the security leadership right here today. Make the most of your opportunity today. Make friends and debate the topics. You all have so much to offer each other and indeed share with others. Because the sector, by sharing ideas, what the public sector calls best practice, what works in one organisation, the same meat with a slightly different gravy may work in another organisation. So you're looking at the different sectors and the language and everything, but the principles are the same for the sector. And finally, a few words to inspire you in your endeavours as leaders of the security sector. When I decided to become a politician, which is a long time ago, I was successful in business. I was good at developing, I was good at getting the deal, I was good at selling, and I enjoyed it. But I wanted to do other things. I wanted to be a politician. And of course, when you become a politician, it depends on what colour you are, and people throw things at you and say horrible things about you and question your integrity. And so I put over my office, where I sat in my office, my home office, and it's just these few words, which I'll share with you here now. Work hard, do the best you can, don't ever lose faith in yourself, and take notice of what people say about you. Good luck for the rest of the day, and thank you very much.